Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Unlocking the Paradigm Portal. My name is Sarah, and I have been highly productive already this morning, but it has brought up some thoughts that I realized if I'm struggling with it, other people are too, and that is our friend perfectionism. I really wish I had like one of those applause things to do in the background because I feel like anyone hearing that is going to be like, yep. And it is subtle and it is sneaky and it is so freaking common. And it's not this glossy Instagram ready version of like, I just have high standards, but the kind that tightens your chest and that keeps you hesitating and that whispers, not yet, every time you're almost ready to begin. And perfectionism doesn't usually sound harsh at first. It sounds responsible. It sounds thoughtful. It sounds like preparation. But underneath it, there's often something else entirely. And I've spent a little bit of time this morning just sitting with that and what it actually feels like. And I realize that it rarely announces itself as fear. It'll show up, and I can speak for me, and I'm betting this resonates with others. It shows up as overthinking or constantly tweaking every little detail until it is just right. And with that comes second guessing of like, I don't know, does that look right? Is that appropriate? Or constantly consulting AI or a friend or whatever to get confirmation instead of just rolling with it. And it's waiting for clarity before taking action. And it feels like something that it's just never quite ready. And then in the body, it can feel like this buzzing restlessness or pressure behind your eyes. I find myself often like shoving the heel of my hands into my eyes and just being like, okay, this is all going to work. It's just fine. And it can bring up shallow breathing, which I'm actually realizing is interesting because when it comes up for me, I do find myself instinctually taking deeper breaths or tension in the jaw or in the shoulders. And I know my shoulders will get like super, super hiked up. And then mentally, what comes up with that? Thoughts like, I just need to get this right, or I'll feel safer once this is finished. Everything will be okay once it's finished. Or if I do this wrong, I'll regret it. Or if I'll do this wrong, someone else will notice. Guess what? Fun fact, nobody notices. And I always bring this back in conversation and I use it on myself too. If you ever watch Schitt's Creek, there's the episode where David is going to take his road test because his license expired. And he's stressing out about what is this person going to think of him who is doing the road test. And Alexis looks at him and just says, David, no one cares. And that's so dead on right. Nobody cares. Everyone is spinning in their own circle of their own crap. And they're not paying nearly as much attention to you as you think that they are. So how else does it show up in thoughts? Things like, I don't want to mess this up. I don't know what I'm doing. Even if you've had decades of experience, and that's what's been coming up for me as I'm revamping my career and how I'm approaching it. I'm not eliminating anything. I'm just shifting my perspective. But that keeps coming up like, oh my God, I'm completely changing course. What if I screw it up? But you know what? Never have yet. And I keep reminding myself of that. Just adaptability, roll with it, go with the flow, and learn to trust that inner knowing. Because perfectionism convinces us that safety lives in control. So where does it come from, you ask? Well, here is a very important part. Perfectionism is not a personality trait. You were not born a perfectionist. It is not a flaw. It is not a failure. It is a strategy. And most perfectionism forms early when being careful or quiet or correct or exceptional felt like the way to avoid criticism, to avoid conflict, to avoid disappointment, to stay connected with others, to stay safe. And at some point, your system learned that if I get this right, nothing bad will happen. So in reality, perfectionism became a shield. And if you think about it, as I say, with all of these traits that people love to bash others for, like people pleasing and perfectionism. How freaking cool that your subconscious was able to devise these strategies without you even being aware of it, just adapting to your circumstances and your environment to create shields and protection devices. And the important and key thing is to realize that worked then, and you can choose differently now. You don't have to, but you can. And that shield became a way to manage uncertainty or a way to reduce risk. And for a very long time, it worked, and it probably worked very well. Anyone who has struggled with this is probably extremely high achieving in whatever manner. There is no, linear pattern of what high achieving is. But it worked until it didn't. And if you're listening to this now, and if this is resonating, I'm willing to bet there's some cracks in that shield and it's not working so well anymore. And you start to see that perfectionism becomes a cage. And over time, that strategy outlives its usefulness. But instead of protecting you, it starts to slow you down. It starts to exhaust you, disconnect you from your body, keep you stuck in endless preparation. And perfectionism doesn't just delay action, it delays living. It keeps you circling instead of stepping forward, or polishing instead of expressing, or waiting instead of trusting. And the most painful part is that perfectionism often keeps you from being seen, because being seen requires risk. It requires being honest with yourself, honest with others, open. And if you've got shields up, open is not an option, because open feels scary. But releasing it can also feel tremendously unsafe. And this is that catch-22 that we find ourselves caught in. Like, I want to let it go, but it doesn't feel okay. It feels dangerous. And here's something that we don't talk about enough, that letting go of perfectionism, while it can feel dangerous to the nervous system, because underneath there's a belief that if I don't control this, I'll be judged, or if I don't do this perfectly, I'll lose something. If I let this be messy, I won't be okay. But the goal is that through that discomfort and that feeling of unsafe, that's creating more nervous system dysregulation. And my whole career has been around regulating the nervous system. So when you're struggling with this perfectionism and doing it right, you're maintaining that dysregulation. So you can't shift it until you're fully aware of it. And the goal is not to rip it away. This is not a rip off the Band-Aid moment. The goal is to make your system feel safe enough to loosen it. So we're looking for gentle ways to work with perfectionism, right? Not to fix it, not to conquer it, not to shame it, for sure, because God knows you probably have felt enough shame. It's just to work with it. So first, you have to name it without judgment. Try saying quietly or out loud, "This is my perfectionism trying to keep me safe." And that single sentence can soften the internal battle, because instead of keeping that stuck and locked in that cage, you're actually owning it. And how cool is that, to take ownership of your own feelings? And then you can bring it into your body and ask yourself, where do I feel this in my body? And it's unique to everybody, but you don't know until you ask the question. And the question might feel scary, but that's part of coming back to you. Does it feel tight? Does it feel buzzy? I know I get this like low level humming vibration, not in a good way, but in like a tension way. And it can feel heavy. You might feel like you have the weight of the world on you. And that's when you breathe into that spot. And if you're not sure how to do that, refer back to the video last night about somatic practices and learning how to breathe into your body just for a second, just to notice it. Don't change it, just acknowledge it. Because safety begins with presence. So the next step is that you shift the question. So instead of, is this perfect? Which I hate that word. I've banned it in my house because I think it's setting a very unfair, high standard that is virtually impossible as there is no set standard for perfection. So instead of, is this perfect, try, is this honest? Is this alive? Is this enough for today? Because perfectionism wants certainty, but growth requires permission. So one of the little things that I say to my kids when I realized that my own perfectionism was trickling down to them, and I'm going to be honest, it's still a constant battle, like not on a daily basis, I would say, if I think about that, but it is still fairly consistent. However, I'm able to sometimes check it into place. But I remember saying to my son once when he was trying so hard to be perfect, and all of a sudden I had this epiphany moment of seeing, holy shit, that's not him. That's what I've projected and what he's absorbed. And I got to cut that crap right now. Talk about another mom fail right there, or mom opportunity for growth. And I said to him, just look at it as be your best self today. And some days that's going to be a superhero and you're going to kick ass and take names and you're going to do such incredible things. And other days it's going to be getting by. And sometimes getting by is I need to retreat from the world and I need to stay in my bed. And some days it's just being quiet. And some days it's doing the bare minimum. And that's okay too. It's about showing up and growing into that authenticity of where you're at in that moment on that day. So practice of working through perfectionism, it's about containing imperfectionism or contained imperfectionism. It's choosing small, low-risk places to practice, like posting something without rereading 10 times. For example, I don't retake when I'm recording unless I really super fumble over something really badly. But that's been one of my practices. And let me tell you, the first couple of episodes that I recorded, actually, I shouldn't say that. The first 4, I was just verbal vomiting. So there was that. But then when I got back into it, only I don't even know, a month ago, I was retaking 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times because my throat would get caught up and I wouldn't want to cough on the microphone or I wouldn't want to sound like a complete idiot. And then I was like, hold up, my whole purpose of being here is authenticity. And authenticity means I stumble sometimes. I say things incorrectly sometimes. And I may cough sometimes, and that's okay. So try, if you have social media, if you have a YouTube channel, whatever it may be, if you post something, try it without reading it over and over and over again. Just put it out there. Because I guarantee when you fumble, somebody else is going to go, I'm not the only one. So another way to do this contained imperfection is stopping when something feels done enough. If you've already checked it 15 times, it's done enough. Let it be. If there's a misspelling, you know what? People misspell. That's okay. And let it be done 90% complete. Just once in a while. I mean, if you have a major project that has to be fully complete, okay, maybe don't stop at the 90%, but that's for you to evaluate what can be left at 90%. I actually do that often with the dishes. I'll unload the dishwasher and then the sink will be piled because, teenagers. And I stand there looking at it and I'm like, I don't have the energy to do the whole 100% right now. I did 50%. I'll get to the rest. And then harass them about why are they not doing it too. So this is about teaching your system that nothing bad happens when I stop controlling. The world will not stop spinning if you don't do all the things. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it will not actually fall apart if you don't do everything. Let me grab a sip of tea. My throat gets dry when I do this. So the next step is thank the part of you that learned this, that learned that it's okay to not do everything because this is super big. And also with that, thank the part of you that had the shields up for so long because that was really big. So say, thank you for trying to protect me. I'm safe now. Even if you don't fully believe it yet, fake it till you make it. Think of Stuart Smalley from SNL when he did the I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. He didn't believe it, but he kept saying it to try to believe it. And yes, it was funny and a joke, but it also is true because your nervous system listens to the tone more than the logic. So what is the truth about perfectionism? Well, perfectionism isn't asking you to become flawless. It's asking, will I still be okay if I let myself be seen? And the answer slowly and gently over time becomes yes. Yes, I am okay, even here, even now. And the moment you stop trying to perfect yourself is the moment that your body can finally exhale. Because when you're in that state of nervous system dysregulation, you're not breathing deeply because your body is holding on to that control. But perfectionism was never the goal. Safety was. And safety doesn't come from control. It comes from presence. So if perfectionism has been loud lately, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're standing at the edge of something meaningful and something where your system wants reassurance before it lets you step forward. And you know what? I actually made a note of this and I want to go back and say this one more time. Perfectionism was never the goal. Safety was. And safety doesn't come from control. It comes from presence. So write that down and remind yourself of that. It is just for today. Instead of trying to eliminate perfectionism, it's about practicing offering yourself that safety, not through control, but through presence. So just give yourself that little breather just for today, one little moment. It doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be precise. Just put you out there, whether it's say the words that you've been wanting to say, or think the thoughts that you've been avoiding, or start to map out that project that you've wanted to do or that dream that you've had. Or what I'm going to do next when I'm done here is I'm going to go back and I'm going to keep working on the book that I've been wanting to write. And it has morphed and ebbed and flowed since I was 5 years old. And I'm finally doing it in baby steps. And then when that control starts to come up, I pause it and I set it aside and I go do something else. But do the one thing, just the one thing, one little step. And I will be back later tonight for something else. So like, share, subscribe, leave me some comments. Let me know what baby steps you're taking to release a little bit of this perfectionism and move a little bit more into presence. Have a wonderful day, and I will be back later. Bye.